Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about a pretty serious topic having to do with privilege. And what I'm going to tell you is if you're going to enter into the adoption journey, you've got to take a really hard look at yourself and check your privilege at the door. I've taken a lot of notes today because this is a juicy topic. The typical family who starts on their adoption journey to bring a baby into their home is a family who are maybe people that come from an intact family, had very close relationships in their lives, maybe were very financially stable, middle to upper class, had a lot of material possessions growing up, traveled the world and experienced different cultures, and had a lot of people like you surrounding you. On top of that, you probably looked like somebody in your family. You grew up having healthy relationships, having a good education, and living a very stable life. That's most people, obviously not everybody. You've probably dreamt many times of the perfect, quote unquote, as my son likes to do when he talks, of the perfect child and the relationship that you would have with your child. Am I right? And then you enter the adoption journey with likely pretty unrealistic expectations. Frankly, I wish somebody would have told me that. Maybe you think that the more money you have, the quicker the adoption will be. Perhaps you could pay an agency a little bit more money and you could get a baby quicker. Maybe you think that if you have a lot of money and show an expectant mother that you live in a big, beautiful house and live a very wealthy lifestyle and travel the world, that you'll get chosen quicker. Maybe if you show her that you have lots of fancy things, or that you're beautiful to look at, you have a beautiful family, you know you won't have any problems being picked. And you probably think that you'll have the pick of the litter, right? Well, adoption doesn't really work that way. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining. You likely enter the adoption journey with a sense of entitlement and a lot of privilege, whether it's white privilege or financial privilege or anything that I really just talked about. Likely you've carried this around with you your entire life, maybe without even recognizing the privilege that you've grown up with and the privilege that you live with every single day of your life. If you don't check that at the door when you enter the adoption process, your child may never be enough for you. You'll continue to have unrealistic expectations. You see, you enter this process with a certain set of life experiences and expectations. And on the polar opposite end of that is an expectant mother who has her own set of life experiences and expectations. Probably on the opposite side of where you are at. And yet, in order to make the adoption process work, you have to somehow figure out how to meet in the middle, how to have a compassion and an understanding and a heart, an open heart for each other. And unless you can figure out how to do that, one, it's going to be a lot tougher for you to adopt. And two, I fear that it won't be fair to your child. Because adoption is not perfect. Adoption is not, children are not perfect, right? I mean, this could totally be for your own biological child too, but having adoption in your family creates another layer of complication, of issues that you will have to look at. You can't pretend it's not there. And at certain, throughout your life with your child, you are going to have to be responding to what your child needs and not what you expect. And sometimes it's going to be messy. And sometimes it's because of where they came from, right? Chances are that you can't even imagine getting to a point in your life where you make the decision to place your child that you had just given birth to with another family. But somehow this woman is doing just that. And how can you learn to respect and understand that in a way that it's not shameful, that she is not just a vessel, but part of this beautiful journey of adoption? So one of the things that you need to do is really take a look at that for yourself and really start to understand what that's looked like for you, how you can let some of that go. And also a big part of that is letting go of control, right? So a lot of what I've been talking about also goes hand in hand with having control over your life. And you're probably used to controlling many things in your life. But when it comes to adoption, at a certain point, certainly the beginning part, going through the home study, making your appointments, doing the paperwork, doing your background checks, you have control of how quickly all of that goes. But then when it really comes down to it, you have to let go of some control. And only then is when the magic is going to start happening. When you can check your privilege at the door and put your hands up and say, this part is out of my control. Whether you believe in a higher being or the universe or God or whatever, at that point it's up to that. So I always talk about leading with an open heart and an open mind. And you have to be able to do just that in order to think about adopting a child. Because it is complicated and it gets messy a lot. So how can you figure out how to take your world and what you've known for your whole life and come to a middle ground with this woman who perhaps you don't understand, but begin to understand and open your heart and have compassion and let go of those things in your life that have been handed to you, sometimes without even you accepting it, but it's been handed to you and that's all you've known for your whole life. So I'm going to leave you with that, to think about compassion, to think about how privileged so many of us are. If you are at the point in your adoption journey when you are getting closer, inching closer to connecting with an expectant mom, I want you to think about these words and think about how you can kind of let go of your idealism and your expectations, and instead open your heart just a little bit wider, because chances are all those expectations that you think that you can control are a way of protecting your heart, because as it gets closer, it gets really scary. So check in with yourself about all of that. If you want to sit down and talk with somebody, I highly recommend an adoption counselor or therapist who specializes in adoption. It's not enough to just talk to a counselor that deals with general anxiety and fears, but somebody who really understands the complexities. That's the word I was looking for. Adoption is complex. Somebody who knows those complexities of adoption. So thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you have any articles that you want to share, books that you've read, favorite sayings, or just anything that you've been thinking about around this topic, we'd love to hear it.